Like I said, we could talk about anything together related to the Buddha's teaching. Just to start us off on the uh, somebody asked if I could talk about emptiness and rebirth. And emptiness and rebirth are such difficult technical questions to answer in their own right. And then having to answer a question on them together is it's quite technical and quite difficult. And so I think the first thing we have to establish before we can talk about emptiness and rebirth, and I'm sorry if I keep hitting the same drum, but before we get into a knotty intellectual discussion about the nature of these deep aspects of the Buddha's teaching, we first have to have a conversation about experiencing and thinking. No one got enlightened by thinking. You'll never get your head around the Buddha's teaching just by thinking about it. No matter how intellectually savvy you are, no matter how thoroughly you've read the texts and the books, you haven't understood the Buddha's teaching if you're just thinking about it. It is experience-led, not thought-led. Meditation is experience-led, not thought-led. Experience is primary, thinking is secondary. We do some study. We attend a Dhamma talk. We read the Pali Canon. We read a book on Buddhism. Fine, important. It is necessary to have a conceptual framework. However, when we sit down to meditate, we leave the books behind. We leave all that accumulated intellectual knowledge behind. It doesn't lead. We sit down to meditate. We do not know what's going on. We rest in the uncertainty of sheer experience, allowing experiences to occur. And then we find that thought has its part to play. There is this conceptual reflection that occurs that says, oh, that sound I just heard, that was the sounds of birds singing. Or, hey, that's a pain in the back, or whatever it might be. So there is, first of all, a non-conceptual appreciation and understanding of what something is. And then there is this reflective concept that crystallizes what that experience actually is, conceptually. So we always have to come to meditation from a place of not knowing. And that allows novel discovery. Otherwise, what we're doing is we are leading the meditation, we are steering it to try to resemble something that we have heard or read or contemplated. No one becomes enlightened in that way. You need to be able to distinguish thinking. Thinking is useful, it has its place, but its place is secondary. It is a reflection of experience. The important thing, what leads to the arising of insights, is that pure experience which is free from being steered by the intellect. And so when it comes to a discussion about emptiness, or a discussion about rebirth, all this discussion is tentative. No conclusions should be formed from merely the discussion. You have to test it through real experience. Okay? And so online, you get all these discussions occurring between people who perhaps don't understand this and are trying to figure it all out intellectually in the belief that somehow, perhaps the idea is that if I work it out all intellectually first, then I'll be able to do the meditation properly. But it doesn't work like that. You have to meditate from a place of not knowing, not understanding, a place of uncertainty. That allows then novel insight. Okay. But it is helpful to have some kind of conceptual framework that can help inform what it is that we've seen non-conceptually. So that reflective process can say, it's exactly the same as I read in the books. It's exactly the same as I've heard it said. Oh, yes, it does happen that way, doesn't it? But it's been seen non-conceptually, and only then has the intellectual aspect been utilized. So thinking is a reflection. It doesn't steer. Okay. So on the question of emptiness and rebirth, it wasn't clear to me from the message that I received what the problem actually was. I suspect, however, that people hear about emptiness, the idea that things do not possess an inherent reality. So whatever perception is saying is there, the appearance of a thing being there, the reality is that it is empty of that thing. There's the appearance, but that appearance has no inherent reality. Okay. So what we discover through meditative insight of looking closely at conscious experience is that we can deconstruct the conscious experience down into what the Buddha called the five aggregates: materiality, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. And there are subdivisions that can be made of those five groups. But essentially, those five groups are momentary, transient occasions of conscious experience that these various components come together in the moment and construct a moment of conscious experience. So there's no fundamental substance to things if we look through the lens of Buddha's higher teaching. Things are empty of their thingness. So whatever perception is asserting is there, we discover through practicing insight meditation that it is a construct. So you could take the example of a car. We could swap every component of your car so that it was no longer the same car, and yet we would still recognize it as your car. Car is a constructed thing. It's an assemblage of parts, none of which has inherent car nature. So you could take any element of that car, any component, you separate it off from the other parts, and you look for its inherent car nature, and you won't find it. It only has the appearance of being a car, nothing in the in the car is inherently car. It's all not car. Okay. And we know that there is no soul in a car. All right. In conventional terms, there's someone driving it. And I think herein lies the issue. So if we deconstruct the nature of a car, we see that no part has inherent car nature, only when it is relative to the other parts and it's performing its part in the overall functioning of the car, are we able to say, generally speaking, yes, it's a car, but there's no car in the car. Okay. But there's a presumption that the car belongs to me and I drive the car. And I think that's where the confusion arises with the idea of rebirth. That people are met with these two distinct but actually completely interwoven ideas. The idea of emptiness, nothing having inherent nature, everything just being mere appearance, a construction that arises and passes away. And on the other hand, the idea of rebirth. And I think that the problem is that there is an assumption that rebirth, I think people confuse rebirth, say, with reincarnation. So in reincarnation, you'd have the idea of the soul driving the car, and that that soul does not change. It is eternal. It is an eternal soul. All the bits of the car come to be destroyed, and a whole assemblage of car parts is put together so the soul, the driver, can carry on driving. So that would be an idea of reincarnation, that a soul doesn't die, the body dies, but there is a soul in the body, and then a new body is created for the soul to drive around in a new life. But that's not the Buddhist take on rebirth. That's more of a Hindu idea of reincarnation. In Buddhism, there is no driver. Everything is constructed from the aggregates. Every conscious experience is the arising of aggregates that come together, influence one another, create this moment of conscious experience, and then all cease. And the purpose of Vipassana meditation is to observe that that is indeed what is happening. There's this process of conditioned and conditioning phenomena arising, being present for a moment, and then ceasing. Every moment is a construction of aggregates. So every moment is empty of inherent reality. Okay. And then, so the question is, well, if there's no self, what gets reborn? And the Buddhist answer to that would be that you don't need a self to be reborn. There isn't an eternal soul. There is just the inexorable flow of conditioned and conditioning phenomena. There is just the arising of conscious experience. And if we understand the Buddha's teaching, we understand that what drives that flow and causes future aggregates to arise is the necessity to experience the results of our actions. In order to experience the results of our actions, there has to be a mind and body. There has to be the 5 physical senses and mind to allow for sensory contacts, which then allows for the arising of feelings and perceptions and the tendencies towards habitual behaviors. And that is your resultant package. And then in response to the results that come with the sensory contacts, the feelings and perceptions and tendencies towards habitual behaviors, there is new volition, new action, which, if taken with a view of self embedded within it, necessitates the future arising of resultants, which necessitates the future arising of mind and body. There is no self in materiality. There's no self in sound. There's no self in a tactile sensation. There's no self in smell or a taste. There's no self in feelings, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, neutral feelings. There's no self in a perception. There's no self in any kind of mental formation. There's no self in any moment of consciousness. No self in hearing, no self in seeing, no self in smelling, tasting, touching. And that's what we discover through the repeated observation of our conscious experience. And yet, even with the absence of anything even remotely resembling self-nature, the whole of conscious experience works perfectly. So it's just a continuation of this flow of the aggregates arising due to conditions. There's no self in any of it. So emptiness and rebirth are not contradictory, even remotely. And if somebody understands condition-dependent origination, paticca samuppada, and if they apply themselves to resting content, resting in the moment, content to note whatever arises, and someone persists in that and observes again and again the transient nature of every component part of conscious experience, it is inevitable that they will come to understand how all this works directly for themselves. So, hi, Sally. You want to have a chat?
Hi, yeah. Obviously I've got everything that you said going around in my head as well now, but I had a question about the Eightfold Path. I wondered if you could help me with.
Okay.
I was really thinking about right speech in particular. Um, would you say it's useful to have like a daily focus to try and hone the skills for each area of the path? So perhaps thinking on one particular day, right, I'm really going to think about right speech today and really think about what I'm thinking and saying and whether those are sort of good intentions or bad intentions, whether it is right speech or wrong speech. What's your thoughts on that? Does that
Okay.
make any sense?
Just trying to, just trying to reconfigure. Sorry. Um, Again, it's thought-led, isn't it? It's steering it too much. You don't have to steer it. There's not, in the context of following the Noble Eightfold Path, it is inevitable that we fall into wrong speech. So rather than trying to get speech right, I think it's more about learning from it through experience, so experience-led, what wrong speech actually feels like. Which means then we're free. Our speech is free. We can, if we're practicing mindfulness, if we're willing to wisely reflect on our, again, notice, so experience-led and then wisely reflecting, then we become aware through experience that we experience a painful feeling about some conversation we had earlier today. And if we're approaching this wisely, we say, okay, so what was my speech pattern there? What lay behind my speech pattern there to make me feel so uncomfortable when I recall it now? And lo and behold, we discover that maybe there was something that we had to say to such and such a person, but we chose the wrong time. Or perhaps, oh, I wish I hadn't said that at all. Yeah. Because actually it was coming from this place or that place. And so we discover through walking the path what doesn't work. Everything else must therefore be right speech. You see what I mean?
Trying to control it too much.
Don't worry, you're not alone. Everyone is, because everyone's trying to steer it intellectually because they want to get it
The
right.
control.
Yeah, because everyone wants to get it right, which, going back to what I was saying before the meditation, is completely okay. It's completely understandable and okay that people should want to get things right. However, it inadvertently creates, this is why you shouldn't put the intellect in charge, because it becomes tyrannical so quickly. So our speech can be free in the sense that there is this willingness to reflect. And we know that there's this discomfort that comes when our speech is coming perhaps not from a good place. And so we're dealing with those incidents rather than trying to control all of speech. And we say to ourselves, okay, well, I can see that this is what taking responsibility is. I can see that in that situation, I probably could have put it better, or I was coming from resistance, or I really needed to talk to that person about that thing, but I chose the time when they weren't open, and I tried to hammer home the point, and then you go, oh, okay, well, put that down to experience. Let's see what happens next time. But maybe next time I can just see if I can be mindful of maybe how the other person, what I can sense from the other person, whether they're open. Or maybe I need to take more care about acknowledging my own resistances before I broach those kinds of subjects. Do you see what I mean? So you're only having to deal with like the one brick that's out of place. You're not having to just prop up the whole wall. You're not having to control all of speech. You're just retrospectively honing your skills with speech, which I think is far more doable.
So a bit more like objectively looking at yourself from above and looking at everything that's going on, and then a bit like you do in the meditation, you're watching it all. So in a way, you're watching the speech, and then you're going, yeah, that came from a bad place or a good place, and that sort of thing. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I'm not trying to say. I think I'm saying it quite succinctly. Yeah, that you wait until there is. You wait until there is a reason to reflect, and you can just enter into life free of the need to control. And if there is a reason to reflect, it will be self-evident because of the way that you feel. Yeah. So that's why meditation is so important. That's why learning, keeping a journal, learning to note simply what happened and in what order. And you're gradually learning this skill of being able to wisely reflect. And then that comes to your rescue when confronted with painful feelings due to um, speech patterns. And that also helps with, for instance, knowing what you're responsible for and what you're not responsible for. What is genuinely a painful feeling that you're experiencing because of a, perhaps a little bit of wrong speech, and what is someone else trying to impose that upon you or trying to get rid of their painful feelings onto you. So when we take responsibility, in Spider-Man, he says, with great power comes great responsibility, but for Buddhist meditators, with great responsibility comes great power. If you're willing to take responsibility, you become powerful. Not in a way that is trying, sorry, Sally, not in a way that's trying to dominate anybody else. But you become, as it were, inwardly very, very powerful. So that's speech. Okay, I hope that helps. So it's not trying to control all of speech. That would just be, Annie, hello. Nice to see you.
Hello, Paul, and thank you for this opportunity. I seem to go backwards and forwards. I think, oh, I understand this not self. Yeah, that makes perfect sense now. The body isn't mine and everything. And then I'm extremely confused again because you talk about karmic blueprint recently. I mean, is that not the self?
No.
Right. So what is that then?
Like, when the right conditions come together, something happens. So there's the potential. They're like, so if there's a seed, if there is like soil with nutrients, if there's rain, if there's sun, the plant can grow. It's just conditions.
Right.
There's the potential for that seed to become a fully formed plant if the right conditions are met. If the right conditions are not met, it doesn't happen. So there's the potential for karmic resultants to arise if the right conditions are met. If the right conditions aren't met, it doesn't arise.
Mm. There is this thing about what are you responsible for and what you're not, with regard to the Eightfold Path.
Yeah, okay, so that's looking at it at the conventional level.
There's this idea, there's like this phrase you've used about convenient fiction, isn't there? Seeing that, but I mean, for example,
what do you mean by self?
Well, for example, who's doing the craving? Who's
doing? No, but what do you mean? Who do you think the who is then? What is self?
Well, someone's doing the craving, someone's doing the hating, aren't they?
Why? What is that? You are asserting that there is somebody who craves. So there's not just the craving, there's not just the volition, there's not just the desire, there's not, you're saying there is someone who does it.
I was thinking the whole point of following the Eightfold Path is getting the I out of the way.
No, because that implies that there is an I.
Identifying with things. Yeah.
Well, identifying with things is based on an ignorant grasping, isn't it? So the whole purpose of insight meditation is to observe, like in the example I gave, everything that's required for a car to work is assembled in a car. Now, you can take every element of that car and you can strip it down to its elements and look for the self of the car in the car, the thing which is undeniably inherently car, and you won't find it because there is no such. And you put all the bits back together and the car works perfectly.
There's something very distinctive about us, our biological selves, Paul, and a car. Cars don't have feelings, do they? They don't have volition.
Yeah, but feeling doesn't have self. Volition doesn't have self.
Okay. Very puzzling.
Well, look, Annie, you don't have to take my word for it.
Question of disagreeing, Paul. It's just if
No, you don't have to agree or disagree. All you have to do is pay attention to your experience.
Who is doing the following of the path?
Well, would you like to find out?
well, I look at my life or I mean, but I mean, there are times, for example,
But would you like to find out?
of course.
Okay, well then practice mindful noting.
Hmm.
There's no about it. Either because it's just a denial of what I started this conversation with. It's like it's not intellect led. It's this experience led. Intellect merely reflects what has been seen.
No.
You're trying to work it out. You're trying to fill the universe.
I do see that. Yeah, I mean, it's just I was saying in the breakout room. It seems as if I have two people going on here. The person who is when I'm depressed, and it really is as if there's a tyrant who takes up possession.
Yeah, because it's thought led.
Well, I just don't have the choice of positive thinking. It's just there's no or I mean those horrible nightmares. It's just it feels yeah. But anyway, never mind about that. But then now when I think I'm really glad to be alive. That's a completely different experience. But even so, it's still up to me, isn't it, to make sure I put the light out at night before midnight and don't and we have some.
Yeah, you're just mixing levels, Annie. You're just mixing levels. Conventionally speaking, I go around. Yes, I turn off the lights in my house. Yeah.
Well,
it's just a mode of speech. It's just a convenient way of talking. So we talk about a car, right? Because otherwise we're forced to explain every time we point to that thing. We are forced to explain the whole thing, why it's there, what it does, what it's made of, every single time. So instead of having to do that, we just use this useful little conceptual device of calling it a car, which saves an awful lot of time. And we all know what we mean by that. But the Buddha said himself, I use the terms, I'm not confused by them. And he's not confused by them, not because he intellectually runs this round his head endlessly. He understands it because he looked at his experience and saw the true nature of experience. And that's what the path is asking us to do. It's okay not to understand. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be confused.
Is it? Right.
Yes, of course it is.
59 now.
If it was so easy to understand all of this, we would all understand it already.
Yeah. I mean,
it's deep, it's subtle, it's hard to see.
Yeah, it's really mysterious, isn't it?
It is. Life is deeply mysterious. Anyone can discover the truth for themselves if they are willing to put experience before intellect. They are willing to admit that they don't know, and there is a strong, deep, abiding wish to understand and a willingness to accept instruction, to put that instruction into action and find out for themselves what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Someone in the chat. Giuseppe, hello.
Hiya, Paul. Thank you for that explanation. It's really helpful. My question is more about something that I don't know whether it's trying to tell me something or it's nothing. So I just thought I'd explain that it seems that for me, sitting in the seated practice, it's a something I've always enjoyed and felt like it's a good thing, and it seems that there's less pain, distress, and suffering when I'm in the seated practice. But then outside of the seated practice in everyday life, I can suddenly find myself a bit panicky or distressed or that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, is it trying to tell me that maybe I am controlling, not controlling, but maybe somehow able to manipulate things so that you sit down and things are you know, going in a certain way, but actually there are other things causing, well, maybe unconsciously there are other things going on, and it's just a question, obviously, of time. You start to see a bit more as to what's going on. So I just wondered what your thoughts on that would be.
So are you saying that in the context of meditation, for like formal seated meditation, you're willing for states like anxiety to be there?
Yes.
When you encounter the arising of such states outside of meditation, you treat them differently. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I mean, you're really helping me to try to understand this, because I think what happens is, outside of meditation, it gets all a little bit too much and distressing, and then I need to maybe sit down and meditate, and then I'm able to sit with it, and then somehow well, I would then maybe trace it back to an unpleasant feeling in my body and say, okay, that's a pretty painful feeling. And then your mind goes off on another tangent, and it doesn't seem to have an all-encompassing effect.
So you're trying to get rid of anxiety?
Possibly, yes. Yes. Yeah.
Again, understandable.
Yeah.
But you're not using meditation in order to explore conscious experience, allow whatever wants to arise so that you can notice transient nature. It is a subtle form, not so subtle form of control,
Yeah.
which you don't have when you're just out and about.
Yes.
Okay. So where do you think this is leading? Where do you think where do you think I'm trying to steer this to?
It's understanding that it's important to rest in the present moment and allow whatever to arise without, well, and then this is what is coming up for me recently. There's definitely acknowledgement, let's say, of an unpleasant feeling, and then unconsciously I sort of say to myself, I must be probably disliking this unpleasant feeling, hating this unpleasant feeling. There has to be, and then by saying that, almost it helps, because
because it's less inaccurate.
It's less inaccurate, but I can't see at the time, oh, I don't like this unpleasant feeling. All I can see is there's an unpleasant feeling, but absolutely there has to be.
But the very acknowledgement that you can't see something means that you're trying to solve something.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, what is the self in anxiety? What is the self nature of anxiety? Where is it? What is it? Doesn't have it. It's an aggregate. It's a mental formation. It arises due to conditions. If it is identified with as being me or mine or myself, and if it is clung to, then it is perceived as something of substance.
Yeah.
And then it requires some form of resolution because it's unpleasant, which means I'm unpleasant, I'm uncomfortable. So it all becomes about me.
Yeah.
If it is acknowledged as being an impersonal aggregate, it's not me, it's not mine, it's not the self. If it can be seen that it is actually seen, I mean, not thought about, I mean, experience led, it is seen and understood to be product of conditions and is not clung to, then its passing away can be observed. Then it can, but the important thing is, because it's not identified with, it can be there.
Yeah.
Now, if that's not what's being practiced in meditation, no wonder it's not being practiced in the daily round.
Yeah.
See, because you're on a slightly different path.
Yeah.
You don't want to understand. You want to solve. You want to get rid of.
Yeah. Remove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we act in that way, we ignore the true nature of what we're looking at.
Yes. Yeah. I'm, it's just, there is a refreshing element to what you've just said.
Are you living a really, really, like morally bankrupt life?
No.
Are you breaking precepts left, right, and center?
No.
So it's unlikely then that this terrible thing you think is going to happen on some level is going to happen. It's just the quality of anxiety. If you like, you can say, you can just say it's the quality of anxiety passing through.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can experience it fully when you don't identify with it. When you know that it doesn't define your experience. When you know that it's not telling you, well, what it's trying to tell you is not so. It's trying to tell you that, doom is just around the next corner. But it's telling you a lie. But when we identify with it, we're saying, yeah, all right, I believe you.
Yeah. It makes so much sense, Paul.
Experience it. That's what I'm saying. Experience it.
Yeah.
But we fight it.
Sorry, I just missed that last word you said.
When we fight, it just grows.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing, I'm hearing you say that it's important to allow it, not have fear of it, and realize also that, there is the element of trying to control, manipulate, and get rid of, which is
understandable. Entirely understandable. Yeah. And again, we're back to this thing I talked about before the meditation.
Yeah.
Which is, because the most difficult thing of all is to be able to say, well, how do I surrender to this? How do I let go of control? It's just more control, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think it is being appreciative and thankful for these qualities emerging in the past and the strong, desire to steer our internal world to be what we want it to be, and be grateful for that and be thankful for that. But now recognize that we're now learning this new trick. So we're not forcibly trying to we're not forcibly trying to surrender. What we're doing is we're acknowledging both. We're acknowledging the tendency to want to steer and saying, thank you, that's wonderful, thank you very much. Now I'm going to allow this. So you're not in denial, you're not fighting internally with it. You're going, thank you for that, thank you. Now I'm going to practice just letting go and allowing this state to be here. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define what's going on in life. It gives every impression that it does, but it is actually empty.
Yes.
Anxiety is empty of the thing that it is insisting is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just that willingness to experience it completely.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely, the better we keep the precepts, the more we practice relatively selfless acts of kindness and compassion and being there for other people, the more we practice loving kindness meditation, the more mindful we become, the easier it is to bear the anxiety when it arises. The easier it is to go, well, no, whatever you're telling me is the case, can't be the case, because I follow the Noble Eightfold Path and I know that my behavior is relatively blameless, and therefore you can rage and you can do your thing and I'm going to experience you thoroughly, which is why formal meditation and coming on retreat and things like that is so helpful, because it allows us to go into a specialized setting where we feel okay, it's a calm, peaceful place. So I'm in the best place to allow this side of the human experience to express itself, so that I can see it's not made of anything.
Yeah.
It's insubstantial. It's fleeting.
Yeah.
Comes and it goes.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, and really for the highlight of the self element there. Like the worry or the anxiety is assuming that there is a self present that it needs to be worried about. So getting caught up in all of that.
Well, look, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Again, we're back into this thing of it being thought led. It's got to be experience led. And in experience, we don't know that it's not self.
No.
Okay. It's only by being in experience and allowing the anxiety to be there that we come to start to appreciate that something which is dependently originated and has the nature to arise and pass away cannot be self.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be overly steering.
No.
We want to be free to experience.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I see in the chat people are coming up with techniques. You don't need techniques. Dave, you have a...
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I was just sort of following up from what Giuseppe said, and I think my experience after having an interview with you this year was that I was developing a different I was separating out meditation and life, and lessons I was learning in meditation I wasn't actually carrying forward into everyday life. So in a sense, the meditation is understanding that yes, openness and allowing whatever wants to arise, but that's that sort of understanding, in life there was still this need to control and manipulate and not allow, and to try to deal with things in a controlling way rather than an allowing and accepting way. So it's this kind of following up from Giuseppe's point, really, that the two somehow, you need to, the two aren't really separate.
How can they be? How can we compartmentalize the spiritual life? It's like your daily life is empty of any inherent reality, and it can be a testing ground for all of this. So yeah, we have the relative control of formal seated meditation, coming on retreat, coming on a Wednesday, coming fortnightly to a Zoom meeting and so forth, and we meditate, and you're in an environment where you can allow yourself to experience anxiety. But the whole point is that life is not compartmentalized, and if you do compartmentalize your spiritual life off from the rest of your life, for whatever reason, your development will stall. Your meditation will stop going anywhere. It will stop doing anything, because what it requires is real life lessons to be learned as well. I mean, real life, as if meditation isn't real life. You see what I mean?
Mm.
Like sometimes, like the meditation seizes up and people don't move forward because there's stuff in life that they need to learn. And so, yeah. So perhaps applying these lessons in life will help to show you that you don't need to compartmentalize in that way. And that may very well free up the meditation and help the meditation move forward into new areas. Because it's almost like, well, we can't go into new areas until you start applying this in the rest of life. Then we can start showing you some more stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, so it does. You can't divide off the spiritual life from the rest of your life. I mean, that's what I understood when I came in for full-time training. You know, oh, this is the whole of life. Oh, okay. It's not just some interesting pastime. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Yeah, it is what you learn in the meditation, you then have to, and life will present endless opportunities, as we know, to observe our responses to events. So Claire, hello.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you, Paul. This
Okay.
is connected. I've got a question, or just talking through something that came up in meditation,
Okay.
and links to no self and emptiness. So I've the instruction is, and it's very helpful, that when managing anger, bad feeling arising, particularly towards people who are close, that's the instruction, I think, that you know, when the bad feeling arises, it's helpful to say, it's not me, it's not mine, it's not myself. It's arising conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And by the same token, that is the same instruction when feelings of love or compassion or loving kindness arise, that it's not me, not myself, and it is not me.
I think I think it's less necessary, in the sense that we tend to cling less to those pleasant states.
Yeah.
It's not quite, you know, you're not likely to enter into resistance upon the arising of a deep feeling of love for somebody. You're not going, oh no, not this again. Oh no. It's unlikely.
Sure.
However, as you get deeper and deeper into the insight practice, it becomes self-evident, if I can use that word, that indeed all states arise due to conditions and cease. There's no self in any of them. That doesn't stop love being love. It doesn't stop compassion being compassion. However, it leads to freedom through non-grasping. So if, however, there is, you know, if there is clinging attachment towards pleasant states in meditation, then you will actually find that the meditation will become ever more painful. So in which case, then yes, you do need to practice.
Say that again. Sorry, Paul.
Well, if there is clinging attachment to pleasant states in meditation, meditation will become more and more painful.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Because all states have the nature to arise and pass away. They arise due to conditions and then cease. And so any kind of attachment ultimately any kind of identification is suffering, even to pleasant states.
That's what, yeah. Thank you, that's helpful. I think maybe in the conventional sense, I don't allow myself nice stuff, because I think, oh, that's just a passing away, or don't get attached to that because it's not me. But yeah,
I can understand that. However, it is the nature of action and result that if we are due to experience the results of our past efficient, skillful actions, if the conditions allow it, those results will arise, and those results will arise as feeling of benevolence, feeling of happiness, feeling of a sense of material comfort. It's like, and so equally on both sides, the positive side and the negative side, it's not about control. It's the opposite. It's about allowing. It's allowing all these states to pass through, and through allowing all these states the space to express themselves, and observing our responses to those events, that we develop the wisdom about which are the skillful actions and which are the unskillful actions. So it is allowing on both sides, and then observing how then if I attach to this, then it becomes ever more painful.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
Claire. So it's allowing on both sides. Yeah. Learning from experience. And it is just so interesting. Like, I understand it's so difficult for people to recognize, especially in our society, how intellectually driven everyone is. But meditation is where you can learn to allow experience the primary place, and naturally relegate thinking to just being this reflection of what has been seen non-conceptually.
I'm noticing myself maybe realizing an intellectualization of a nice experience or a nice feeling. But anyway, you can go on ad infinitum. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. All right, everyone, I'm cooked for this evening. Thank you all for your contributions. Hope some of that was helpful, and I think we're due back together again on the 8th of December. So I'll see you all then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul, very much. Really good.
Thank you,
Thank
Paul.
Thank you,
Paul. See you all again soon.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yes.
Thanks too to Ellen.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.